Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're putting on our botanical detective hats to unpack a real game changer of a plant care breakthrough. It's all buried in entry 879 of Ang's gardening journal, and we're going to see exactly how Ang managed to transform a fragile, struggling flower into an absolute structural masterpiece. It all starts with a question that honestly haunts pretty much every home gardener. Why do professional nursery plants look so much sturdier than the ones we grow at home? I mean, you do everything by the book, right? But months later, your plant is looking all weary and leggy, while those nursery plants, they look like indestructible miniature trees. Well, Ang set out to solve this exact mystery. Section 1. The Mystery of the Spindly Vinca. Let's take a quick look at the exact problem Ang was facing. Just to ground ourselves in the botany here, the subject of Ang's journal entry is the vinca. You might know it has the Madagascar periwinkle, or if you want to get scientific, catharanthus-roseus. Now, Ang was incredibly invested in these plants, growing them from seed, tending to mature store-bought ones, the whole shebang. But despite all that dedication, a highly relatable frustration just kept popping up. Ang's journal actually captures this pain point perfectly, noting, quote, frustratingly thin, fragile stems. And, over time, no matter where they came from, these vincas just always seemed to get leggy. Instead of growing up strong and proud, they'd stretch out, becoming totally floppy and structurally weak. It's the exact problem Ang was determined to fix once and for all. Section 2. The Nursery Breakthrough. This is where a simple trip to run errands turns into a major moment of discovery. So, during a trip to a local nursery, a stark physical contrast literally stopped Ang right in their tracks. Think about it. At home, Ang's vincas were elongated, spindly, and fragile, but the batch of vincas sitting right there at the nursery, incredibly thick, with strong main stems and sturdy trunks. They were built like little tanks. Ang leaned in, totally determined to figure out their secret. And what's so brilliant here is the absolute simplicity of the solution. It wasn't some proprietary nursery fertilizer or some exotic, expensive soil. Nope. The visual clue was hiding in plain sight. The tips had been pruned long ago. Someone had intentionally snipped the tops off these plants way before they ever reached the sales floor. And that simple act, it fundamentally changed their entire developmental trajectory. Now let's break down the mechanics of exactly why this works. That single tiny pruning cut actually triggers a massive chain reaction. First off, it immediately puts a stop to that frustrating upward leggy growth. Second, the plant still has energy to burn, right? But with nowhere to go at the top, it's forced to push side branches out from the lower nodes. And finally, just to balance out those heavy new branches, the base has to adapt. It does this by developing a sturdy, incredibly thick main trunk. Basically, you halt a fragile vine in its tracks, and you force the plant to build a robust miniature tree. Which brings us to Section 3, the pruning action plan. Because armed with this new knowledge, Ang definitely wasn't just going to sit back. It was time to experiment. Ang took this nursery inspiration and sketched out a fantastic, really proactive project for the long weekend. Instead of just letting those spindly branches take over, Ang takes control. Step 1 is to propagate through cuttings, to start totally fresh. Step 2, prune the tips early on, mimicking exactly what those professionals do. And Step 3? Just watch and wait as the plant is forced to push those awesome side branches out. Honestly, it takes all the guesswork out of gardening. You're actively engineering that professional look right in your own home. So this brings us to our ultimate takeaway. Because really, this explainer isn't just about the Madagascar periwinkle. It's about observation. And managed to solve a massive frustration simply by paying super close attention to structural differences. And it kind of makes you wonder, right? What other professional nursery secrets are hiding in plain sight in your own garden? What could you discover if you just looked a little closer at the stems and leaves? I highly recommend you go out and conduct your own botanical experiments this weekend. Thanks so much for exploring this with me.